Urgent statement from the Kremlin. Vladimir Putin's meeting with Donald Trump in Budapest was effectively cancelled as new conditions were set both for the meeting and for ending the war in Ukraine. The Kremlin stated that it does not intend to agree to a ceasefire until the government in Ukraine is overthrown and authorities controlled by Moscow are established. Sergei Lavrov, head of Russia's foreign ministry, said Trump's calls to end the war are unrealistic and don't match what Putin and Trump allegedly agreed on in Alaska. And now the Kremlin is saying that there is no exact date for a meeting between Putin and Trump, and in fact it's not certain that it will happen anytime soon. Even the preparatory meeting between Lavrov and Marco Rubio has already been postponed by at least a week. At the same time, Vladimir Zelensky today described the behavior of the Russians quite clearly. Quote, I'm Alexei Pechi. Today is October 21st. Let's discuss this together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like and leave any comment under this video. Also subscribe to my Telegram channel Pechi News. You'll find the link in this video's description where we post breaking news as it happens. And friends, if you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so with any donation using the links and details in the description of this video. It says there, support the Alexei Pechi channel. Choose any format that is convenient for you. I will be grateful for any support you give. So, the Kremlin started to backtrack and basically stated that all hopes for a quick meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are premature. The exact timing of a possible meeting between United States President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Budapest has not yet been determined. The Russian dictator's press secretary Dmitry Peskov said this today. Here is his quote. No exact dates were mentioned. Both the American and Russian sides need serious preparation and time to organize negotiations. So, there is no official date for the meeting yet. Its timing will depend on the completion of the preparatory procedures, Dmitry Peskov told us today. That's what I was talking about, Russians. As soon as the pressure eases a little, they immediately start stalling, making up excuses and making Donald Trump look, like a fool. Because now pay attention. Right after meeting with Vladimir Zelensky, Donald Trump said at one of the press conferences that a meeting with Vladimir Putin should take place in about 2 weeks or so. So Trump actually mentioned the time frame? Donald Trump also publicly wrote the following on the social network Truth Social. Quote, at the end of the conversation with Vladimir Putin, we agreed to have our senior advisors meet next week. The United States meeting will be led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, with the location to be decided later. Then President Putin and I will meet at an agreed location in Budapest, Hungary, to discuss whether we can put an end to this disgraceful war between Russia and Ukraine. So, Trump publicly announces that the first meetings between Marco Rubio and Sergei Lavrov will take place next week. He made this statement on October 17, which was last week. Accordingly, logically, according to Trump's statement, the meeting between Marco Rubio and Sergei Lavrov should take place this week. Later, there were insider reports that the meeting between Rubio and Lavrov was scheduled for October 23, possibly in Budapest. And so the Russians start stalling, claiming that the Kremlin will not accept Trump's conditions, that they are not ready for a ceasefire, that many issues still need to be agreed upon, and so on. I'll share more about what Lavrov said today a bit later. And so, in the end, it becomes known that United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov might meet in the Hungarian capital Budapest on October 30th, that is, in another week. And even then, sources said that the Russians added that this is not the final date yet. And now, once again, Trump, the president of the most powerful country in the world, says that Marco Rubio and Sergei Lavrov will meet as soon as this week. The Russians ignore this and postpone the meeting for another week. So how does Donald look after that? This Donald's and this Donald's. So missiles aren't supplied. Another Zelensky quote. Once the pressure lessened, the Russians began trying to withdraw from diplomacy and delay the dialogue. Only pressure on Russia can fix this and stop it. Only sufficient range of our defense brings Putin back to reality. Thus, the announced meeting between United States President Donald Trump and Russian dictator Vladimir Putin was threatened due to the position of the Russian Federation regarding Zelensky. Thus, the announced meeting between United States President Donald Trump and Russian Vladimir Putin turned out to be a threat. Quote, now some in Washington say we should stop immediately, there's nothing more to discuss, and let history judge. Just stop. This means forgetting about the root causes of this conflict, which the American administration clearly understood when Donald Trump came to power. And so, according to Lavrov, after negotiations with Putin, the head of the White House spoke in favor of a long-term sustainable peace. He rejected the idea of an immediate ceasefire, which, according to Lavrov, would lead to nothing. However, now the European patrons of President Volodymyr Zelensky are trying to convince the Americans to change their position and stop seeking a long-term settlement. From Lavrov's point of view, an immediate ceasefire would result in most of Ukraine remaining under the control of the Nazi regime, which is how Moscow views Zelensky's government. Lavrov explained that a truce would not only allow the Ukrainian armed forces to be supplied with weapons, but would also encourage, quote, terrorist actions in the form of strikes on Russia's civilian infrastructure. Lavrov added that Moscow still insists on ensuring Ukraine's non-aligned, neutral, and non-nuclear status, which means refusing to join NATO or any other blocs. In addition, the Kremlin sees genocide of the Russian and Russian-speaking population in Ukraine, and Russia also intends to seek an end to this as part of addressing the root causes of the war. Only the unwashed Russians know what is really hidden behind these phrases. Here, YouTube started hinting to me that I shouldn't call Russians unwashed, but that's my personal opinion. In my opinion, the unwashed Russians are always trying to dodge and twist history. And what about Donald Trump in this situation? Well, Trump made an absolutely outrageous statement the other day. When Trump was asked if he had discussed Russian strikes on peaceful Ukrainian cities with Putin, the United States president replied that Putin convinced him that in all the strikes on peaceful, let me emphasize, peaceful Ukrainian cities, it was mostly soldiers who were killed. And, as Trump put it, that's a good thing. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.